Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. We've got on New Year's Eve, we've got a brand new Virtual World Rank 9 monster we're going to talk about here. Very, very interesting card for sure. We will definitely get into, but there's not much else to go over here. We're just going to talk about this card. We're going to talk about what it's doing for Virtual World, what Virtual World still might need, and all that stuff. So let's get into it. This is Virtual World Tiger Hoo Hoo. I'll say this. I love this card's artwork. I think he looks awesome. I don't love every Virtual World monster's artwork, but I love this guy. Oh man, he looks so cool. Okay, here we go. He is the rank 9 Earth Worm. XYZ effect monster, 2600 attack, 2800 defense. So okay stats, but it's a rank 9, so it could have been a little higher, to be honest. But, we're not complaining. Its materials are 2 or more level 9 monsters. Very expected. That's what we kind of expected to see. And this card gains the following effects depending on the number of Virtual World Gate cards you control. If you have 2 or more, this card can attack directly. If you have 4, this card is unaffected by the activated effects of cards except Virtual World cards. That's pretty neat. Here's the problem here is I'm not even sure this archetype has a 4th gate, right? Like I think it just has 3 gates. We'll talk about more about this at the end. I think it has the card that places a gate face up. Then you have Choo Choo, the one engraved. Is that Zhuanwu? And then the spell, which Qinglong, maybe, I can't remember if those are their exact names, but the spell and the 2 traps, and they're all continuouses, and I don't think there's a 4th one. So yes, technically, I guess you could put other gates on the field, but they'd be the same name. You honestly want, other than Chuche, you want all both the other 2 engraved more than you want them on the field anyway. So I don't particularly love that either. So I don't expect to get to this effect very often to make this a towers. The second one's definitely possible, with a Chuche and maybe a Qinglong. I still hope that Qinglong's the right one. I'm thinking of the spell. To make it at least attack directly, but even that is okay. It's 26, not bad, but I don't know. Still not changing the world for him. Helps you make a Zeus, but you have so many other cards in the extract that facilitate Zeus way better than this card. So these effects, honestly, not that big of a factor for me. Into the second effect. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card, then target 1 monster you control and 1 monster on the field with a different type and attribute as cost. Negate their effects until the end of the turn. This effect's a little more interesting. It's kind of just an impermanence with an extra restriction, right? So, at least for this card's purposes, right? This is an Earth Worm. So if you're playing against an Earth or Worm-based deck, you wouldn't be able to negate those monsters. Now, the good thing is, a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays generically go into a bunch of different monsters in the extract that are generic, that have nothing to do with the archetype that's actually making them, and so you'll obviously have some point somewhere to be able to hit them. But my only thing with this is rank 9s. I know they're not the hardest to make in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, but they're still one of the harder to make exceed rank material levels, ranks in all of Yu-Gi-Oh. Still, there's not many 9 base decks. I think there's Generator, and then I think there's this deck that obviously was abusing Calamities prior to it getting banned. But I don't know, I feel like this effect could have and probably should have been a twice per turn, or honestly however many materials you can get on it, so that way even if you want to go absolute ham and throw 3 9s into this monster, you'd have 3 negates with it potentially. It's not the most insane negate. In fact, you have to negate a monster. So if he negates himself, that's another reason that they should have made this twice per turn, because if he has to negate himself with the first one, he can't negate again with the second effect, or you'd have to chain it immediately and do it all at the same time. So there'd be ways to beat it, but the overall power of it would at least go up to potentially be able to fire off multiple times. Because if you ended on this plus another monster, even if that monster was an interruption, use that one first, then use this one to negate that monster, negate something else, and then a second one to negate him himself and another monster your opponent controls. So I don't know. It just feels definitely a little underpowered to me. I mean, let's look at some of the other monsters. Like, obviously I mentioned this prior to and by the way, Virtual World, which was like the best deck in the game at one point in Yu-Gi-Oh! It really never got hit in terms of its engine. They just said, we're going to take away your most insane end board piece, Calamities. And now the deck feels a little bit too fair because they can't do anything quite as powerful as this. So, right, if we're really just comparing like what Calamities gives you for 2 level 9s to what this card gives you for 2 level 9s, they're not even in the same ballpark. On top of that, there's like a new guy in town that's actually going to be coming in the next core set, Photon Hypernova. The new Generator boss monster is even more powerful than this card as well because, one, it lowers all monster opponent controls by 1,000. That's just nice. And then as a quick effect where you tribute it once it's XYZ summoned to special summon the other Generator XYZ monster from your extra deck, then you attach cards from the field or any graveyard to it as material up to the number of materials this card had. So essentially what you'll generally be doing is non-target, non-destruction, taking any 2 cards from your opponent's field or graveyard and slapping it on the other Generator boss monster as a quick effect. It's very, very strong. I don't think it's like the end-all be-all, but if we're comparing rank 9s and how much payoff they give you, Calamity is definitely the king, and this card's definitely second. I don't think this card's even close to where the payoff Leviathan gives you. The only downside with Leviathan is I know that Virtual World can be tight in the extra deck sometimes, and just to play this card, you would have to play the other Generator XYZ monster, so you're using 2 slots, not just 1, so that's definitely something to note, but the power is undeniable. And then even Hyperiton is another 9, and this guy's just a monster negate that can potentially become a spell or trap negate as well. Definitely more likely to become a spell negate later on. You could even argue that this card's interruption is just straight up better than Hoo-Hoo. So, I don't know. This card just seems like it should have had like one more other effect, or they just should have made this like twice, or just not even once per turn. Because like if you have to negate itself, obviously it's not firing again that turn. So like whatever. I don't know. Definitely just underwhelming to me overall, to be honest. These are the other 9s. Honestly, I might play Hyperiton over this. Definitely Leviathan over this if I can fit the slots for both the cards you need to play. But yeah, definitely underwhelming to me overall. This card is like a 4 out of 10 if I have to say so. Maybe even a 3 out of 10. Like, just for what you're going to have to put to get into it. And the fact that, you know, the payoff is just not nearly worth. And we have like out of archetype cards that are just way better to make in those scenarios. I don't love it. And the last thing I might as well mention here is, like I said earlier in the video, I believe right now that the archetype has the spells and traps. They have the one card that places all the spells and traps, the gates, into your straight up face up in your zone. So that's Chuche, I think it's Qinglong, and I think the other one's Zanwu. It's 2 traps and a spell right now. I think it would make sense if we got one more gate that is another continuous spell. Maybe could do something consistency based. That would be really, really nice. Just because like one of the big things you hear with Virtual World nowadays is, even when it was in its heyday, you were like, yeah, the deck can have consistency issues, but we make Calamities really easily if we can play. And now the modern day thing is like, we don't have the insane payoff of a Calamities, but the deck still has like these little consistency issues, and you can just open bad hands all the time, and it's really, really annoying. So maybe give them another spell that's like a legit good starter in the hand, that it's a continuous spell, so turn 1 you can get it face up, and that unlocks all the Virtual World monsters in the hand. That could definitely be something. I'd love to see that. I don't know lore-wise if that makes full sense. I know I'm just talking out of my ass here because you guys know I'm not as big into lore. Does that make sense? Does the archetype, like lore-wise, still waiting for another gate, or has it already been filled? Like, does that not make sense in the you know, talkings of the lore? I don't really know. Let me know your thoughts though down below. Overall, underwhelming with this card, but honestly, I'm almost a little more excited to just play Leviathan in Virtual World than this card. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, guys, please. Kind of a downer for Virtual World, because I know a lot of people that have been in my comments talking about Virtual World and how they hope like they'll get good new support soon. This is not it, guys. I apologize, but I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, before we hit 10 minutes, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this from me down below. We should have like 30-ish more cards to go for the core set. It's literally coming out in the OCG in 2 weeks. So over the next 10, 11-ish days, we'll probably get the last 30 cards. So obviously a lot to come there. I'll bring you anything that is worth noting. And I'll see you in the next video. Happy New Year's, guys. Peace.